Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or the SNAP payments that a federal judge had ordered. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson has issued the temporary stay to allow the Boston-based First U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals to review the government's application in full. The stay blocks an order by Rhode Island U.S. District Judge John McConnell requiring full payments to states. The administration has stated that due to the ongoing government shutdown, there are only enough funds to provide partial benefits this particular month. It had previously agreed to issue $5 billion from a SNAP contingency fund, but objected to using an additional $4 billion from Section 32 child nutrition funds, arguing that the court had no authority to mandate it. Nearly 42 million Americans rely on the SNAP benefits, making this the very first lapse in benefits during the program's 61-year history. Some recipients have in fact reported going without meals or relying on minimal food supplies. With us on the broadcast is Mr. Matthew Wadham, American journalist, joining us from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us. We've been seeing reports that the larger political framework in Washington, D.C. is now in limbo with this particular shutdown, but a lot of concern has been regarding the SNAP benefits that 42 million Americans are reaping, those who are from lower income or marginal communities who rely upon these benefits to get their daily nutrition needs met. With this particular ruling, what sort of impact will it have upon these people as well on the ground? Have you been speaking to those who have been impacted by this, and if you have, what are their primary concerns?
I have not, I regret, been speaking to people impacted who have been affected by this. My work normally concerns speaking to lawyers and other people in the court system. So I don't, in terms of what's going on, with the man on the street or there's people on the ground, I have to rely on reports from other people. But I know that some people are going without because the food stamp program, also known as SNAP, Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, I think SNAP stands for, has run out of money, and there's been fast-moving litigation in the last couple of days. The federal district judge in Rhode Island ordered the government to pay to cover full benefits for the month of November, approximately $9 billion, I think it was, and said there's no excuse for them not to act. Then the government immediately appealed to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the First Circuit in Boston, which a little over 24 hours ago declined to stay the lower court judge's ruling, and then immediately, basically, the Trump administration appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court, and within about 2.5 or 3 hours, Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, who's in charge of appeals from urgent appeals from New England, issued a temporary administrative stay, not to allow the justices to consider the case, but to allow the First Circuit Court of Appeal to consider the case. What had happened, it's a little complicated, is the First Circuit granted one, or did not grant, denied one application for a stay, but did not rule on the second application for a stay, but promised to do so quickly. So what Ketanji Brown Jackson of the U.S. Supreme Court did is she put the lower court's order forcing the government to pay the food stamp SNAP benefits on hold to allow the judges of the First Circuit Court of Appeals to properly consider the second application for a stay, and that is what presumably they are doing now. Justice Jackson said that the stay will expire 48 hours after the First Circuit has made its decision. So this could presumably come back to the Supreme Court. You could have a situation where the First Circuit Court of Appeals again denies the second stay application, and then the Trump administration could appeal that to the U.S. Supreme Court and say it's an emergency and we need urgent action. Now, that's assuming they would do that, assuming that the shutdown continues and that they don't have funds approved or appropriated by Congress to pay out the SNAP benefits. If the shutdown ends, then all of this becomes, I guess, moot, and the government will have the money to pay out the SNAP benefits. So it's a fluid situation, and you're going to have a lot more activity in the courts because there are efforts to force the government to spend money, and the government says, well, we can't spend money because the Constitution says we cannot spend money unless Congress has appropriated the funds. In other words, unless federal lawmakers have approved the funding. So you're going to see a lot more of this, presumably in coming days, especially as the shutdown drags on. It doesn't seem to be on the verge of ending right now. And as the shutdown continues, people are getting increasingly upset and pointing fingers at whether it's Republicans or Democrats, blaming them for the shutdown. So legal reporters like me are going to be very busy.
Absolutely. With that, I would like to thank you, sir, for taking out your time and, of course, explaining what's happening on the ground as far as the legal